Your life is going to be so much better when you understand how to regulate your nervous system, and I'm going to teach you everything that you need to know. Welcome to my second video in my series on how to understand and regulate your nervous system. In this series, all of the information builds on each other, so if you haven't seen the first video in this series, please go watch and absorb that, and I'll meet you back here in 13 minutes. Now that we have this basic understanding, we are going to start mapping your nervous system. We're building a foundation of self-awareness here. I'm Gabby. I'm a licensed trauma and attachment therapist, but I am not your therapist, and this is not therapy. I'm just giving you general information and theory. Nothing that I say is a substitute for professional advice. The more awareness that you have of your internal state, the more control you'll have over your emotions, your behavior, and your relationships. And when you can self-regulate pretty consistently, everything in your life is going to be so much better. So stay with me and reflect as you watch and take time to really notice your patterns, because this is your map, and the more that you put into this, the more that you're going to get out of it. Here's how part one works. You're going to get so familiar with what each of these states feel like that soon you'll be like, oh, I'm really mad. Wait a minute, I'm in the yellow. Or like, oh my gosh, oh wait, I'm in the red. We want you to have awareness of what state you're in while you're in it. And then with that data, we can then just reverse engineer it and we'll have a path to regulation. I've created a few worksheets for you to fill out as we go through this video to help build your map. You can access them by just clicking the link below. I genuinely believe that the world would be a much better place if everyone knew this information, so I'm going to have this series be entirely free. But if you're finding value in this and you'd like to consider supporting my channel, I've left a link below. Financial support will allow me to spend more time working on this channel so that I can make videos faster. And if you choose to contribute, I will happily give you a thoughtful answer to any specific questions that you might have. You can just feel free to send them to my email, and then I'll answer them at the end of the next video. And I'll keep it totally anonymous. Thank you. Time to get started. We are going to start working on recognizing times that you were in each state. We're going to start with the yellow and then go to the red, and then we'll end in the green. If you'll remember in the last video, I described the yellow as your body encountering a threat and believing that the best course of action is either to fight the threat or to run away from the threat. So fight or flight. And when we think about times that we're in the yellow, this doesn't have to be times when you were actually being chased by like a wild animal or actually having to fight. We're only talking about times that your nervous system activated to prepare you to either fight or flight. I'm going to list 2 times that I was in fight and 2 times that I was in flight. And as I do that, think about times that you were in the yellow and record them on this little map, or just like take notes in your phone, whatever you want to do. In one of the first videos that I ever posted, someone said something that was really nasty to me, which is just part of being on YouTube. But it was the first time someone said something that was like, wow, you must be a really terrible therapist. And it really hurt my feelings. And I wrote out like this whole paragraph defending myself, telling this person why he was wrong, just totally wanted to fight him. I took that comment as a threat and I went into fight. Another time I remember going into fight was this person just cut me off in line so blatantly at this coffee shop drive-thru. And it was just like such an egregious cut in line that it just totally filled me with rage. And I didn't do anything, but I was just like mad about it for like an hour. And I had the urge to like do something mean. I didn't, but my nervous system was like, you should. Now that you have those written down, look at them and try to remember how your body felt during those experiences. When I'm having that fight response, I know that my face gets really hot and my jaw clenches, my chest feels tight, and I get this like really intense sense of urgency, like I need to do something right now. I've written down some things that I've heard people report feeling in this state, but every nervous system is different, so pay attention to yours. Take note of some of those feelings and just jot them down underneath each experience. Now let's talk about the flight response, which is also in the yellow. It's where your nervous system senses danger and your instinct is to escape. Not to fight, not to shut down, but just to get away. This flight response doesn't always have to look like literally running for your life. It also shows up as avoidance, especially around discomfort or overstimulation or fear of rejection. Here are 2 examples from my life. My flight response often shows up around my fear of rejection. I used to really struggle with social anxiety, and I know that during that period of my life, I was constantly in a flight response. I was always wanting to leave every event, and if someone invited me to something, I was like, okay, how can I get out of this? I was just constantly in a state of trying to avoid the experience of feeling anxious around people. I have so many examples of times in my life where I just wanted to avoid people because I felt really uncomfortable in groups. Another place my flight response shows up is with my emails. especially since I started posting on YouTube. You guys, I get some of the most strange messages from people, and some of them are like kind of creepy, and they totally overwhelm me. And my brain is like, wait, why don't we just not open the email because there might be something scary in there. So I'll just like avoid my inbox entirely for like a week, even though there's actually really important stuff in there that I need to read. That doesn't matter. My body's just like, nope, that seems like a bad idea. What if we just do something else? If you can think of any, go ahead and jot down any times that you remember being in a flight response. Your body experience in the flight response might be slightly different than it is during the fight response. I know for myself, I feel the flight response more in the pit of my stomach, and I feel the fight response more in like my chest and my throat. So think about how the flight response might feel different to you than the fight response, and jot that down next to the examples in our little map. And also, if you don't remember what you felt like in any of these states, that is totally fine. Now we just know what to look for. So moving forward, you'll be able to notice it. So don't worry about that right now. Now that we're done with yellow, let's start with the red. So if you'll remember, red is when your body senses that you're in danger and there's no way out. So it wants to shut down or fawn respond. Let's break those down a little bit. So a freeze response is like a numb, dissociated feeling. You're just not really present in your body. A fawn response is also a freeze response, where it's like, I can't fight, I can't flee, I'm going to survive by making myself as non-threatening and as agreeable as possible. I'll do whatever anyone says to try and just make it out of this. Sometimes when we're in the fawn response, that can look like people-pleasing. Sometimes it can look like just over-apologizing or trying to anticipate what everyone else is feeling to avoid anyone getting mad at us, or saying yes to things that you really mean no to. One of the times when I felt the most intense shutdown was during a phone call with my former boss. He called me out of nowhere and was just furious. And he was like, I know what you did. And I was like, I genuinely don't know what you're talking about. He thought that I had gone behind his back to try and leverage my employment to get a better offer at a competing place. And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? And he kept being like, I don't need any details. I already know what happened. And I was like, I have the phone log. Like, can I send you the phone log? I'll drive over right now. But no matter what I said, it didn't matter because he was in such an intense fight response that he could not intake any new information. And even just talking about that, I can feel that in my body. Like that moment, I remember just feeling my stomach drop. I was totally trapped because there was nothing that I could say to fix it because he was not listening. So my nervous system went into a full collapse and I couldn't think and I couldn't feel and I just started sobbing. And I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I never meant to hurt you, even though I didn't do anything. But there was like no way out of this. Another time that I go into a freeze response is whenever I'm on a turbulent flight, because rationally, I totally understand that turbulence isn't dangerous. But my little amygdala is like, you are a monkey in a metal tube, laughing in the face of God, 30,000 feet in the sky. You think you're going to get out of this one alive, Icarus? And there is no amount of, statistically, this is the safest way to travel that is going to help how I feel in that moment. I usually go totally numb and I'll lose feeling in my hands and I have this impending sense of doom. I can feel like my vision starts to get hazy and I'll get a really terrible stomach ache. If you haven't already, go ahead and write down a few examples of times that you remember being in a freeze response and then reflect on your nervous system to understand how you felt. Here are some common experiences that I hear people say about being in a freeze response. Just write those underneath the examples. I didn't separate freeze and fawn like I did fight or flight because most people experience freeze and fawn pretty similarly. But if you're recognizing that you feel differently in fawn than you do in freeze, then go ahead and write those down as separate things too. This is about your nervous system. All right, now it's time to get to the green. I really like to teach the green last because a lot of times after we go through the yellow and red, people are like, oh, wait a minute, I don't think that I've ever been in the green. Or the last time I was in the green, I think that I was a kid. And when people say that, I always want to take care to make sure that they understand that they're not broken, that it's more than likely the case that they've just been stuck in a survival mode, and that once they learn how to regulate their nervous system, they're going to be able to get out of it. Because once you understand the map, you'll know which direction that you're headed in. The green is where we are when life is good. We are totally grounded and present and feel completely safe and comfortable. Our body works super well and we're calm and regulated. I'm often in the green when I'm with my best friends and we are just laughing about something silly and enjoying being together. I'm also often in the green when I'm sitting on my bed and writing and my dog is at my feet. That is peak life for me. We'll talk about this more in another video, but it's much easier to be in the green when you're around people or animals that are also in the green. Because his nervous system is detecting 0 threats. He's just chilling. And so that's communicating to my nervous system that things are okay. There's not any danger, right? Great. Okay, thank you, baby. When you're in the green, you feel comfortable and safe, and there's a real sense of ease in your stomach and in your chest. My biggest tell for which nervous system state I'm in is how tense my jaw and my shoulders are. When I'm in the green, my jaw and shoulders are just totally loose, and the more dysregulated I get, the more tense both of them get. So go ahead and think about a few times that you felt that you were in the green and reflect on what your body felt like while you were in those states, and go ahead and jot those down on our map. And I know that some of you guys are like, okay, girl, what do we do about this? How do we get back to the green? But here is the thing. Awareness of these states and understanding what's happening is like 80% of this battle. One of the things that drives me insane about this pop psychology is this idea that to get out of chronically feeling negative emotion, we just have to focus on trying to feel positive emotion. It's like, yeah, that might work temporarily, but if we want to be able to actually manage how regulated we are, we need to get really comfortable understanding what it feels like when we're dysregulated. We can only understand our regulation to the extent that we understand our dysregulation. So although we're not focusing on regulation yet, this is a critical part of this. So your task for this week is to notice your nervous system and to log where you are and what you're doing and how your body felt in this little map. We want as much data here as possible. You can either print this out or draw it or do whatever, but we just want as many data points as possible. Because if we want to know how to go from here to here, the way to do that is to understand what this feels like and this feels like and what this feels like and what this feels like. Once this ladder is built, we'll be able to create strategies that help us move from the red and from the yellow back down to the green. Once again, your homework this week is to go out in the wild and notice which state you're in and keep track of all of those on this map so that we can build a really phenomenal ladder. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week.